Velkommen til LØRN.tech, en læringsdugnad om teknologi og samfunn, med Silvija Ceres og venner.
Hello, and welcome back to a Learn Masters series with Morten Goodwin on AI. This is our fourth lecture, our fourth chat, and the topic of this fourth session will be a workshop, a play shop, really,
exactly.
where we are sandboxing AI in LØRN. So I have my own company that I need to worry about. And as we've heard, AI is useful for any company, any industry, any function. So we are basically going to try to do a 15-minute exploration of what can AI do for LØRN, and where do I start, how do I get this going? And what I'm hoping for is that the audience, as they hear me discussing this with Morten, think about their own company, their own function, and try to think about what would this mean for them. Sounds good?
That sounds excellent, exactly. Because I think once you start with your own ideas, where you're expert on, in this case, your LØRN environment, that's where you see the potential, I think. And that's what most people should do. They should see, this is the area I really know. If I want to do AI on this one, this my area, then it's no better place to start. Sounds perfect.
So I have to also admit that Morten and I have spoken quite a bit about where we should use AI in LØRN, but I'm going to start from scratch now. And I say, Morten, lovely seeing you. I haven't seen you for a couple of years. I have this company called LØRN. It does corporate education in digital formats. We are trying to get as many people as possible to listen to the educational content we put out there. I would love to use AI. What are your thoughts? Where do I start?
Well, my head is filled with thoughts, I think, of possibilities. And I think the first one to think of is what problem is it that you're really trying to solve? And then kind of delve down into it. And one problem to solve is kind of, could be to more specialize the content to each person. So meaning that if I go to LØRN, I may be interested in some parts, technology parts probably, but maybe some other parts as well. Some other people may be interested in political issues, health issues, etc. So I would say that at least what comes very naturally is to say, similar to how Netflix and YouTube and Facebook all use AI to specialize content, we have never really seen that to a good level, at least a satisfactory level in education. So when I teach my students, I teach a couple of hundreds of students at the same time, but I really, really know that they're individuals and they need the content differently produced, differently provided. And I think that is exactly where, at least one of those key areas where you could use AI in LØRN. So if I go as a completely new student to a LØRN system, I would say that I would maybe first give a bit of my interests. I'm interested in computer science, this, and then the AI system could filter out some parts. That's relatively easy, but as you go along, you can maybe collect a bit data on what am I clicking on, how long am I watching a video? Am I just watching the first 2 minutes or the entire video? Am I scrolling a lot across some videos I never click on? These type of things. And it tells you a lot about the behavior of the students. Maybe without them really knowing that you're collecting data. Of course, you should tell them, but it's not so obvious. And then you can understand the patterns, understand from the patterns what each person's preference is, both in content, but also in learning style. Some people are better learners by reading. Some people are better learning listening. Some people are better learning in collaboration. But in most cases, it's a little bit of each, probably. So meaning that if you watch a video, maybe there's time to discuss it with some other person. If you discuss for some time, maybe it's good to get some new content in there. And so
if I'm breaking this down,
yes,
now,
please do.
Basically you started from an understanding that you have from before on our business model.
Yes.
And I remember you and I discussing that. So because I remember you were asking me, well, but what's your business model? What's your what's your ambition? Where do you want to go?
Mm-hmm.
And we want to basically have growth in two areas. One is traffic, visibility. We want more people to see our great content.
Yeah.
And then the second thing we really want is also more effect of our content.
Yes.
So we want to see that they are really learning more. We want to see that people are getting out of their echo chamber and learning new areas, because the future is very cross-functional and complex.
Yep.
We want to see that they learn something every day. We want to see that they learn in different modes, you know, sometimes podcast, sometimes a quiz, sometimes a video. So it's about driving these things. And then I remember you were asking me, the other question is, and where are you unique? You know, what can you use that is unique to you, that will also give you some unique data? And we have our unique strengths are this library of 1,000 cases of innovation.
Absolutely, yeah.
And subscribers and our past traffic. We also have companies that want to come to us and make a tailored series of innovation. So again, we have some unique content that is very tailored but relevant for their whole industry, right? So there's something unique about the content, really. That's the thing now. And so then I remember you were asking me, okay, so how do you gather data that can help you drive this?
Exactly,
and that's, you know, we can have student data, which we talked about now as well. So you were talking about, you know, how often is every person in the system? What do they learn? What's their background? So this we can combine to then create these personalized learning paths. We can group students in learning.
Yes.
Collaborative groups. We can use this. I think you were suggesting to me also to think about optimizing or finding a way to measure the learning experience and optimizing it in some sort of a dashboardy way, which would be probably, so these are the student things, and we can dive further into this. And then another area that we dived into before in this workshop is text or content.
Yes.
So, you know, so Coursera has a lot of content, but when you search for something, you can search for AI but it's basically not structured very much, you know. And so you were asking me, well, if I want to learn about earthquakes and building technology, do you have anything for me? And I'm like, well, I have building technology, but I haven't tagged anything on earthquakes. So you were saying, well, maybe you could find AI useful to tag your content, to look for sentiment, to look for clusters. So let's look at two areas separately here. So one is, how do we help students? The other one is, how do we make most of our content?
That's true. I think it's a good division. So as you exactly say, one is to guide the student in some correct way, and the other is kind of content-wise, the systemizing of your platform. And I think so. At least when you speak now, what immediately comes to mind is, for example, automatic transcription of this video, this podcast, for example, would be quite easily done with AI, meaning whatever we talk about, it's impossible to think, or at least very impractical to think that somebody should tag absolutely everything. It's way too much work. AI could do that. Whatever I'm saying exactly now could be like transcribed and then categorized, etc. And that means that probably through interaction with students, but you can say that this content is similar to this content, meaning that if you're interested in earthquakes, maybe you're interested in tornadoes also, because it has some sort of similarity. Or if you're interested in earthquakes, maybe you're interested in agriculture, because that's somehow related. and then you can see both just word-wise, which is what is similar, because earthquake has a synonym with disaster, which is a synonym again with tornado. But you can also say, what are people really watching at the same time? So a person that is an expert in disasters will maybe search for both of them at the same time, and then you say, oh, these are accessed at the same time. Probably there's some sort of grouping there. And for that part, you could use unsupervised learning, meaning that you don't have to have a guidance to say this is correct, this is correct, this is correct, this is wrong, but saying that this information material is used at the same time. They're probably in the same general area. But these are also used in the same time, but differently from the first. So they are probably have some sort of relation. Of course, you can do this all manually, but that's very, very tough to do, I think.
Can I just ask you one more question? Because this particular conversation is in English.
Yeah.
But 90% of the content that we've created on LØRN is in Norwegian. Is there anyone in Norway? Yeah. We talked about this before, but I want you to tell us. A really good groups that are good at doing this stuff in Norwegian.
Yeah. So absolutely. So in the previous podcast, we talked about the English version BERT, which has a sort of language model. And for a long time, AI was limited to English and some other big international languages, French and Spanish, etc. But now there's something called NordBERT, which is the Norwegian version of BERT, trained by University of Oslo mostly, and some other collaborators. Lilja Øverlid is leading that one, a very talented and intelligent professor at the University of Oslo. And this library is publicly available. You can use it. You don't have to contact Oslo. You can just use it, download it. But yeah, a little bit of programming experience, of course. But and then you can automatically tag, systemize, and transcribe videos. I would say near as good as you can do in English. So it's an amazing opportunity, which I think most people are not aware of. But and when we say Norwegian, it's Norwegian, not only bokmål, but also nynorsk, the Sami languages. I'm not sure how you learn content is any of that, but that's a possibility if you want to do it this way.
So it's very interesting. And basically, I think that also Lilja would be interested in getting her hands on even more good training context. So if people have a lot of really good content in Norwegian, there might be a very good collaboration opportunity for research as well.
And that's what, as a researcher, I would say probably yes, because that's kind of the thing we're always looking at. So where can I get data? Where can I solve a new interesting problem that hasn't been solved yet? And I would say that, yes, both the language group in Oslo, led by Lilja, and I would say also the pedagogic group, technology pedagogic groups in Oslo, but other places also, would probably be a good fit, because it is this interdisciplinary world you're talking about. It's a lot about technology, absolutely, but there's also about language, which is very related to technology, AI, and there's also about finding what is the best educational path, for example, which is very related to technology, but not the same. So I think it probably boils down to what is it you're solving, what is your business model, what are you unique, and where can the technology really support it in a way. And I think, yes, exactly. And I think you should also, at least you should do what you want, but I would recommend to have a kind of a iterative process on it, because when you first develop something, it will work sometimes, but not always. And whenever something doesn't work, you should have some sort of reinforcement mechanism saying that, when I searched for earthquakes, I got cookie recipes. This is not relevant for me. So wrong. And then let that feedback into it.
2 more minutes, Morten.
Yes, please.
And what I want to ask you there is, so you had also this idea of anomalies, and both in students learning, but also in content, or even the idea of rating, so it's cross-connecting the data. We could see which content gets used most, which content gets people to drop off at a certain point. AI could give us some ideas that are across these 2 topics as well, right?
Absolutely. So anomalies is a very interesting way to think of it. And the reason is that you don't really need to say this is a good student, this is a bad student, this is a talented person, this is not, or this is a good content or bad content. You can just look at the content and say, here is something that is a bit different from the system in general. So you could say that maybe that is someone who has different experience that you expect, different background. And maybe he or she should be put in another learning area, or it could be some person with a learning disability, for example, that should be detected early on, ideally. But there's also going to be content that falls out of place. Maybe it's I don't know, AI talk, but you talk too much about, I don't know, viruses or whatever. So this type of thing, there's a lot of these type of anomalies that are very useful to detect. And especially when you have a lot of data and the data is a bit skewed, meaning that let's say most of it works perfectly, but there's like 5% that doesn't. And in disease prediction or emergency management, this is often the case. And I think in learning as well. So we have this majority of the data follows the major trend, but few data points don't. And those are maybe the ones that are interesting and you want to improve upon. So anomaly detection is central, I think.
So if I'm summarizing what you have been basically playing with now and before with me, you ask, understand your problem and your goals, understand your uniqueness and your strengths. Based on this, create some hypothesis of how you want to drive this, and then figure out how to get data to support that. And from there on, you can get help.
Yeah. Or you can develop it yourself. Yes, but understand the problem, understand the data you have, and at least then when you talk to some AI experts, if you want to do that, then your conversation will be much, much more meaningful, because those are the questions they will ask. They will ask, what are you trying to solve? Do you have data? And if you already have the answer, you're spending your consultancy money much, much, much better, I think, because you know it there.
Very good. Morten Goodwin, thank you so much for inspiring us to learn more about AI over this chat.
It has been a pleasure. Thank you.
Du har nå lyttet til en podcast fra LØRN.tech, en læringsdugnad om teknologi og samfunn. Nå kan du også få et læringssertifikat for å lytte til denne podcasten på vårt online universitet LØRN.university.